Hello, everyone. I am Veronica Rosales, and this is for Philosophy and Practice of Ministry class at Eston College. And we welcome Pastor Ron Lapka, missionary and pastor in Central America. But I'm gonna let him tell us about that, and he's gonna tell us about his philosophy of ministry. So, Ron, tell us about you. Tell us who you are and where do you live currently? Currently live.
Okay. My name is Ron Lapka. I'm a Canadian, but I was born to a missionary family in Africa. I lived on the mission field for 18 years growing up with my family there, and then came back by myself to Canada to go to Eston College and transition back to Canada. I have a background in aviation and architecture that I pursued after graduating from Eston. But after working in both those fields for 15 years or so, I went into becoming a pastor at the church in Edmonton, where I was on staff. I was an elder since the early 90s at that church, but came on pastoral staff about almost 20 years ago. So we've been on the mission field now for 13 and a half years here in Central America. Before we moved down here full time, led or participated in about 14 trips and teams that came from Canada to work in Central America. And during that time, God put hooks in my heart to move here as a missionary. He had to convince me because I didn't think that Central America needed missionaries anymore. And both my wife, Sherry, and I planned on going somewhere in the 1040 window where missionaries were more needed. But so I had to struggle with it, and God had to convince us to move here, which he did, and where we continue to serve until he calls us elsewhere.
Yeah. Where are you living right now?
Okay, we
I
live
can
in,
see the beach back there. Are you in the
yeah, this is
beach?
a virtual background, so you can't see my messy bedroom. Okay.
That's funny.
I would be in my office, but my daughter's doing online schooling, so she's
Oh,
there.
yeah.
So it looks more
Mm.
important, more official, like a workspace. But okay,
Awesome.
so we live in El Salvador in Central America, which is our ministry base. From here, we work we connect and minister with churches in Honduras as well. We connect and minister with churches in Guatemala on a regular basis. All of these churches are connected with Apostolic Church of Pentecost, which is our sending organization in Canada. So we moved to El Salvador, where we had the most relationship and history of ministry before we moved down here, and where we were involved with helping plant two churches in Corinto and Corinto Hacienda. And it's central. So we're 2 hours away from Guatemala, 4 hours if we go to the capital city, and we're about 6 hours away from the capital of Honduras, which is Tegucigalpa, where we have a couple churches there. So it's very central, ministry-wise, strategic-wise, and we have churches. I work with two networks of churches in El Salvador. One is called Jesus Christ is Lord, and the other network is called the Good Samaritan network of churches. So I work with both of those networks of churches locally. But we live halfway between the capital of El Salvador of El Salvador, and the beach. So I'm not at the beach like my background shows, but so we're 15 minutes up the hill
Not
to the
very far
city.
though.
Yeah, 15 minutes up the hill to the city and 15 minutes down the hill to the beach, which we almost never go to, oddly enough. But
I want to
that's where we
believe
are.
you.
Yeah.
So,
So
Ron,
that's where we're located. Yep.
awesome. I would like to ask you, what is your current vocational occupation? You say you're a pastor and you're a missionary, but do you have a career or studies that you did
Okay.
before?
My vocation is a missionary.
Mm.
I call ourselves a missionary as opposed to a pastor, because a pastor has a specific local responsibility to a specific assembly by which he's hired and for whom he works or she works. Whereas as a missionary, we have more of a mobile ministry. My ministry here is to support and encourage and help pastors be more successful in what they're doing. So as a result, we are a little bit more mobile. So today I was at a pastors meeting all morning and most of the afternoon with pastors from all over El Salvador, and just encouraging them and ministering into them and teaching them. And we meet with them once a month. Yeah, so 2 Sundays ago I was preaching in San Salvador. Last Sunday I was preaching in Corinto. Next Sunday or Saturday I'm preaching in Saragossa. And I preach all over the place.
All my favorite places.
Hopefully somebody's listening.
Yeah. Yes. I also have a question about your ministry. When did you start it? And like, however you might define that. When did you want to start the mission or the ministry?
Well, I went to Bible school. I don't know how long of a story you want, because this could be a very long answer. But I think
Okay.
as Christians, we are constantly in a development process of maturity. And as Christians, we are being discipled, and we have to
Mm,
disciple others. And that requires consistent development in our own leadership, because we never stop being a disciple, and we never stop being discipled. We shouldn't. And so as Christian leaders, we need to continually be participating in learning opportunities and seminars, and educating ourselves and training ourselves. And if you want to teach, you have to be able to learn. And if you aren't learning anymore, then you probably shouldn't be teaching anymore. So hopefully, so as a Christian, I wanted to go to Bible college. Went to Eston, graduated from Eston not that long ago, and just a couple of years ago. And
yesterday.
because I wanted to, even though I grew up in a ministry home, I wanted to own it for myself and be able to defend my own beliefs. We, as Christians, you grow up in the church knowing what to believe. You're not always good at knowing why you believe it, or being able to defend what you believe, or convince others to believe what you believe. So Bible school gives you those extra tools to be successful in that as a Christian. And then as a mature Christian, you have to continue to invest in others. So at the local church level, that means being involved in leadership or being involved in ministry wherever you can. So whether it's Sunday school or small group leadership, or hopefully as you are faithful in those things, then you can be involved in church leadership at maybe a deacon level or a ministry leader level. And as you mature in that, then you get involved in eldership level, which involves the spiritual direction of the church and more pastoral responsibility. And then as you're faithful in that, then you maybe will walk into or grow into a role of pastoral leadership. And
Mm,
so that was the route that I went, and that's how I grew into it. And you serve as faithfully as you can, and as you serve faithfully, then God opens the doors for you to continue growing or maturing in your ministry and your influence. And so when I was pastoring in Edmonton, or before I was pastoring in Edmonton, I had the chance to do a missions trip down here to Central America with a missionary. My supervisor, Doug Sigelko, was coming down here to do a pastors conference in Guatemala. So another elder from our church and myself were going to come with Pastor Doug to help minister at that pastors conference. But God rearranged everything. Well, I don't want to blame him for everything, but we had two big earthquakes here in 2001, and it was in the fall of 2000 that we were going to the pastors conference in
that's
Guatemala.
right.
So in 2001, we were supposed to be down here in February for the pastors conference, and they had two earthquakes 1 month apart, January 13th and February 13th, 2001. And that changed the whole direction of our team, the whole composition of our team, the whole purpose of our missions team that year. And instead of going to Guatemala for 2 weeks to do pastors ministry, we ended up coming here to El Salvador to do earthquake relief. And that just changed everything completely. And so from then on, I got more and more involved in El Salvador, coming down here several times a year, sometimes 3 times a year, and sometimes for as long as 5 weeks at a time. So that then, as I participated in that, God developed two things. One, I got involved in pastoral ministry, was invited to join pastoral staff in the church in Edmonton. And I also felt led of the Lord to become more involved in missions, which led to a full-time commitment 13 and a half years ago. Well, 14 and a half years ago. Okay, so what was the question again?
That's a really good answer. Thank you.
I could
And
make
I
it
have,
longer if you want.
oh, yes, that would be very nice.
No,
But I
no.
have another questions that I would like to know about you. And before I go into the other two sections that I had planned, first I would like to ask you, I know you have trained for ministry, so I would like to ask you what kind of training do you have for ministry? Because
Well, I
yeah,
graduated
sorry.
from Eston with two majors. I
Mhm.
graduated from Eston with a pastoral major and a general Bible major. I don't know if they
Awesome.
still have. I don't know if they still have those two options, but most people pick a major and a minor. I had two majors, and then after that, I went into mentoring other Bible school students, and so I've been blessed to be able to develop other graduates from Eston who then went into ministry. So
Mhm.
back when a few years ago when I went there, they didn't have a fourth year program, but I've helped many students through their fourth year. So I feel like I've done fourth year program at Eston by training the people who are going through their fourth year. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
That's good.
and besides that, when you're in pastoral ministry, you get the opportunity to continue to take courses and training through seminars and stuff that happens. So whether they're international seminars or local seminars, you're always going to more things, whether it's the Willow Creek Leadership Summit and then reteaching that material to your church leadership, or whether it's the local, like our denominational meetings, like Apostolic Church of Pentecost, when we have our national conferences or our regional conferences or our district conferences, there's always seminars and training involved with that. And then here on the mission field, we continue to be involved with stuff. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
here's a conference that I'm involved with. It's the International Leadership Institute.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good, it's a interdenominational thing. It comes out of the Billy Graham Association and Lausanne Conference for training pastors globally around the world. I think they're in 130 countries around the world. It's
Wow.
an excellent course. And then as Veronica, you know, I'm very involved with the Kairos course that
I do.
tries to work with
Yeah.
church leaders and churches and pastors and leaders to be more Great Commission minded and to focus on finishing the task. So those are
Mm-hmm.
seminars that I've not only received and taken, I am trained in leadership, and I'm also one of the people that teaches and trains other leaders and facilitators in those courses. So that has its own continual learning
That's
involved.
very awesome. Ron,
So
what are you really, really good at?
depends who you ask. What am I good at? I don't. Geesh, I don't know. Are you talking personally, like skill wise? I'm good at
Skill
eating.
wise,
I can eat
ministry.
really good. No. Um,
I believe you.
yeah,
It's
no.
good.
Um, I think, well, yeah, it depends how you ask that question. Like fivefold ministry wise or ministry giftings. I like preaching. I don't know that I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I'm a good preacher, but I like preaching. And
Mm-hmm.
I like teaching. So they're two related things. My non-Holy Spirit side makes it easy for me to teach. And the challenge I feel from the Holy Spirit is I need to preach the same material rather than teach the same material. So there's a difference. And so I enjoy both of those things. What am I passionate about? I'm passionate about people being very vision focused. I think a lot of churches, a lot of ministries, and a lot of people fail because they don't have a clear focus of why they
Mm-hmm.
are doing what they're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm passionate about. So I think that that has become a strength that I try to nurture in other people.
Hmm.
Um, I'm
Yeah,
not
I
a
think.
I'm not a natural people person, but I know that God
Mhm,
is growing that in me. So I think a lot of people who know me think I'm a very socially wired
mhm,
person, and I'm a very strong people person. But that I know is not a natural gifting of mine. I think that that's something that the Lord has grown in my life, and
mhm.
so just being honest about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you are a good teacher. You are a good preacher. I am witness that you also are passionate for the people to get. No, it's true.
Thank
So
you.
now I would like to that you talk to us about the process of the church, the ministry that you are in there right now, how it's been the process, the growth, spiritual and physical growth of the church, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, it makes sense. It's difficult to answer because I work with local churches and I work with networks of pastors. So it depends who you're talking to. So I work with some pastors. I can't use names, obviously, but some pastors, they're not interested in learning. They're not interested in going to seminars. They're not interested in being connected with other pastors. They're not interested in being connected with other churches. So that
Mm,
makes it very difficult to work with them because they're isolating themselves and they're limiting their own personal growth, which means that their own churches are not healthy because the
mhm,
pastors stopped learning and the pastor's not connected. So then the leaders in the church don't feel connected. So, for example, if a pastor is connected with a bunch of other churches, then he's being trained with them, he's fellowshipping with them, there's accountability there, there's healthiness there because you're seeing what other pastors and churches are doing and you're learning from them and they're an example for you and you have an outlet to reach, you have a peer network that both supports you and allows you to support others. So that is essential and that is so important and so healthy. And so when a
mhm,
pastor doesn't have that, they're nowhere near as healthy and their church isn't healthy. So, for
mhm,
example, um, a local church, if a leader in a local church, a young leader, wants to grow in their leadership, they want to feel like they're connected with their local church. They also need to know that their church is connected with other churches, that their leadership
mhm,
qualifications are also being connected with other leaders. So, so they need to be part of a network to allow that to happen. My example is this: is that I'll try and make it short. Okay.
okay.
God did not choose to populate the earth through orphans. God chose to populate the earth through families. And that means that we have a heritage. That means we have a family connection. We know where we came from. We know who's related and connected to us. We know who shares our culture in common, who shares our family heritage and tradition in common. And that was designed by God to help us be healthy and strong. So
Mhm,
when I find pastors that are orphans and churches that are orphans, I don't think that that's the plan of God. I think that the plan of God is for churches and pastors to be connected with a spiritual family where
that's really good.
they have discipleship from more mature people or from peers in that same family network that minister into their lives and can see into their lives and can help them when they're in trouble, and also their kids when they grow up. The kids in a family, they want to know who the cousins are. Yeah, they're related, but they're part of a different family. They want to know who
Mhm,
the uncles and aunts are. Yeah, they're related, but they're in different families. So in the same way, leaders growing up in a church, they want to know who are the other leaders that are growing up in other churches. So maybe there's some pre-pastoral leaders in other churches. How are they being trained? What are they going through? What ministry opportunities they have? And how do the pre-pastoral leadership candidates in our church connect with them so that they can grow and learn together? And
mhm,
for new pastors, when new pastors need to be mentored in ministry, who do they connect with? I think it's good that they have a pastor or a senior pastor that's ministering into their life, but there's also uncles uh, or related leaders in the network that can also minister into them.
mhm,
Because, I don't have all of the fivefold ministry gifts of apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher. Other ministers minister in those areas stronger. And a leader that's growing up under me needs to see those diversity of giftings demonstrated and
That's
modeled by
right.
other people as well, so that they can grow and have a better exposure and experience to influence their life. And so when I work with churches and pastors, it's really important to me that not only that the pastors are connected to that influential network, but also that their leaders also have access to be influenced by that,
Mhm.
so that their churches are healthier, pastors are healthier, and their churches will be healthier, and their leaders within those churches will also feel healthier when they can see that their pastors are connected that way. So that's my challenge right now. Um, I work with, like I said, several networks of churches, and some pastors are very isolated. Some churches are very isolated. And I don't think that that's God honoring. I don't think that that's God's plan. I don't think that's how God wants to do things. And I think that there's a
Mhm.
better way to do it. So I work very hard to try and encourage them to join and be a part of a family where there's health and strength and support
Mhm.
and accountability. But nobody likes that word.
Yeah, I believe.
Okay.
Well, that's a great answer. I really like that. And
Is
you
it
say
too is
something
it
very
too is it
important.
too vague? Is it too vague of an answer?
No, no, that's really
Okay.
good. I
All right.
love it. And I'm pretty sure that this is a good um uh, uh, something that I can use for my assignment as well. So I really want to get to go longer with you, but I have only one more question, and this is
Okay.
very important.
Okay.
What is your philosophy of ministry?
What do you mean by that?
What is your approach, or what would you tell to the class if you had to tell something very important about ministry? What would be that?
Uh, oh, that's a big question, Vero. Um, Picha loca. Uh,
I know.
okay. Um, okay. I don't know if this is what you're looking for or not, but my father was an apostolic minister or a missionary. He did not have people that were there before him. He went there and he established the work. He was the founding missionary for the work that he developed and did a great job. Nobody went there after him. He was the only one in his area. So his relationship to the mission field, the pastors and the churches that he connected with was unique because of that. Here in Central America, for me, uh, I am not the first missionary here. Other
Mhm.
missionaries came before, and they had more of a parental apostolic authority within the churches and pastors here that was completely appropriate and God honoring, and that's the way it should be. However, I'm coming in as the second generation, and so my relationship with the leaders is not so much of a parental one, although I think that there could be room for that in some ways. Um, but I see myself as more of a ministerial peer to come
Mhm.
alongside pastors, to work beside them, to encourage them both as a friend and as a colleague and as a partner, rather than a supervisor or an apostolic father in their ministry.
Mhm.
So that's very difficult for me here. Very difficult in the particular cultural context of Latin America, and very difficult in the heritage of ministry here, because pastors here don't know how to relate to a peer. They know how to relate to a father figure or a
Mhm.
dictator, and they often don't like that because of a bad past experience, or else they have to be the father that's in charge. So people here don't know, especially pastors and leaders, they don't know how to work with a peer ministry. They're used to, somebody being in charge,
Mhm.
one person being in charge. And so when I try to work with some of the pastors here, it's very difficult for them. And I have to try keeping to explain it that I'm not their judge. I'm not here to evaluate them. I'm not here to criticize their work. I'm here to say, what do they need? Where is their weakness? How can I help them be
Mhm.
stronger and more successful? but
Mhm.
that's not always culturally understood well.
Mhm.
Both being a white person, being a North American down here, and because of my age, I'm not a senior citizen yet, as much as you'd like to think I am,
Is that
Vero.
what you wanna
But
believe?
yeah, yeah,
It's
it's what
good.
I know. It's what I know. Okay, so
Wow.
I'm not a senior minister,
Mhm.
with 50 years of experience under my belt to come in and tell young pastors you're doing it wrong. I need to bring correction into your life. We need to change this. I don't come into my ministry relationships here. I never have with the pastors that I work with here. I've never come in as an authority to direct their life or direct their ministry or evaluate them or to extract from them some kind of an authoritative accountability
Mhm.
to me. I've never wanted that role, and I've been very, very clear to tell people that I am not here to replace my predecessor, who was Bill
Mhm.
Lindbergh or Doug Sigelko. I'm not here to replace them. I'm not here to fill their shoes. They had a different role. They had a different posture in ministry, which was relevant to them and appropriate for them. But that is not who I am, and that's not why I'm here. So, if that
Mm.
relates to philosophy of ministry, my hope is to come alongside pastors and help them go further, help them be better, help them be stronger, help them to be successful with whatever tools I have in my tool bag that can help them achieve that. So for them as individuals, for them as ministry families or pastoral families, or for them as a church leadership team. So yeah,
Mhm. That's really good. Oh, I will love to just keep asking you questions. But would you quickly tell us about how your family is involved, and then we can end up this.
yeah. Okay, this is a good question, and I like it because
Mhm.
sorry to always talk about my past, but when I was a missionary kid growing up, my dad was the minister, and there was no ministry expectation from my mom or from us as
Mhm.
kids. And so my dad was the only one involved in ministry, and we weren't. I don't think that's what my dad wanted. That's just the way things were in that
Mhm.
time period, not that long ago. Um, but for me, for us as a family, I believe very strongly that our whole family is here. We're a missionary family. We
Mhm.
minister as a family. Everything we can do, anything we can do to help the local church, be involved in the local church and engaged in the local church, is really important. So because of that, my wife Sherry preaches and teaches and leads small groups and leads an outreach work that she's involved in. So she's fully engaged in the ministry full time, as am I. And both my daughters, Karis and Kaylin, they lead small group ministry. They teach Sunday school. They lead worship, and they're involved in the youth group. So they're very active, involved in leadership in any way that they can. So that's
Mhm.
important to me. Not everybody ministers that way, but for me, it's important that I'm not just here to disciple others. I'm also here to disciple my wife. I'm also here to disciple my kids, and they need to
Mhm.
be spiritually led, spiritually pastored. I'm the priest of my home. I'm the pastor of my home, and so I need to disciple them and make sure that they're also growing spiritually. And you can't grow spiritually without investing in the lives of others, and so they need to be involved in that for them to grow
Mhm.
spiritually too. So
Wow. Ron, thank you so much. Personally, I honor your work, your mission, or your sacrificial work and love that you bring to the community over there in Corinto and El Salvador and Central America. And I keep praying for you, your family, for
thank you,
your self-care as well,
thank you,
your heart, and that the Holy Spirit can keep leading you into where He wants to work. You
thank
have
you.
done so good. You have done great work over there, and I'm so privileged to get to grow with you because I've seen you since I'm little, and you
You
helped
still
me
are
to
little.
come.
You
I
still are little.
know. I never grow. Okay, thank you so much,
All
Ron
right.
Lapka
Thanks. Are we done?
family, and yes, we are just done. And just let me